Hey guys, my name is Mujahid, and this is the fifth episode of A Beginner's Guide to C++. And in today's video, we are going to talk about constructors and destructors. Let's get to it. Constructors are a special type of function that is automatically called when an object is created. That means every time an object is created, the constructor of the class will run. The way you define them is you just name the function same as class and follow it by a parenthesis. Now this is important because constructors have to have the same name as your class, and they also don't have any returning value of type, so unlike creating regular functions, you don't type the returning type, you just type the name. And constructors are also usually created under public, so keep that in mind. Now to demonstrate it, I'm going to create a simple class that has a constructor. Now that I've defined a couple of attributes, I can define the constructor under public. I go with the name of the class and type whatever the function will do. Let's go with something like this. If I go inside the main function, I can just create an object. And if I run the code, we can see that the moment object was created, the constructor was called. Now constructors can also take parameters, so we can actually take those parameters and use them to define values to the attributes of the object. The best way to explain this is to demonstrate. I'm back inside the function, done with this so we can get rid of it, and go inside of here and say once the constructor is called with those parameters, I want those parameters to assign their values to brand and year respectively. So I can go with something like brand equals X and year equals Y. Even though it looks really practical, if you use a constructor that takes parameters, you must give those parameters immediately after creating the object. So if I want to create the object, I should go inside of here and find the values immediately. Let's go with BMW again and 1999. Let's go with something like this to make sure that the values were assigned correctly. If I run the code, we can see that the object was created and its brand and year was declared immediately. Now, just as I said before, if you use a constructor that takes parameters, you need to define the values immediately, unless you know what constructor overloading is. The idea behind this is that we can define multiple constructors to a class, and this gives us flexibility and allows us to give default values for attributes. Let's demonstrate. If I go back inside main and try to create our object, let's name it something like car2. If I try to run the code like this, I won't be able to because the compiler is expecting parameters in here, which I didn't provide. And to fix a problem that is caused by constructors, we can define another constructor. This time we're going to create another constructor which doesn't take any parameters, which also will give the attributes a default value. So I can go with something like this. Now let's copy this and paste it in here to view the values of attributes of car2. If I run the code, this time it works correctly and car1 is still a BMW and its year is 1999 and car2 doesn't have a brand so it is default and the default here we set was 0 so it says 0 in here. As you could see, we can solve a problem that is caused by the constructor by defining another constructor, which is what constructor overloading is about. Now, there's also destructors which work really similar to constructors. Just like constructors, destructors are a special type of function that gets called automatically. The difference is that destructors are called when the object is destroyed. Unless said otherwise, the objects get destroyed automatically. Just like constructors, their name can only be defined same as the class's name, followed by parentheses. And the difference is that you need to use tilde before defining them. It is also important to note that destructors can't take parameters, because what are they gonna do with them, right? When they get called, the object is destroyed anyway. Now let's get back to the code and define a destructor. To do that, we go with tilde and the name of the class. And in here, let's type something like this to see in the console that the destructor was in fact called. If I run the code, as you could see, both of the objects were created successfully, and once the code was executed, both of them were destructed. Since I created two objects and since both of them were destroyed, we see the line car was destructed twice. Okay, so there are no questions for this video because there isn't really much to ask when it comes to constructors and destructors. Instead, what I want you to do is to try them out for yourself, because learning a coding language is just like learning a new language. You must use it, get better at it. Anyways, that's it for this video. Take care.